Okay, we have a poem by Genevieve Taggart called Interior. It was published in the Proletarian Literature of the United States, which is an anthology of communist and communist-affiliated and communist movement poets at the height of, or the very beginning of the Popular Front in the mid-30s in 1935. And Genevieve Taggart altered her aesthetic practice. She'd been more of a modernist, more of an experimentalist at the level of the line in the stanza prior to the Depression. But once she got into the Depression, she began affiliating with political leftism and radicalism and wrote in a more traditional kind of way. So we have a poem here called Interior. What's the interior, Allie? What does interior refer to?
Well, immediately the inside of the subject's house.
A house, right. Well, we don't know if it's the subject's house.
Someone's
house. Probably not the Taggart is probably herself out in the street calling for the person who's in the house to come out. Okay, so interior means inside a house. What else does it mean, Molly?
Inside the mind, I guess.
Right. There's a nice ITY word we use in poetic studies, and that would be interiority. We talked about this a little bit with respect to Whitman, who was calling for first-hand experience, which led him to call for us to get out of our perfumed rooms and outside. So there's a certain amount of proletarian muscularity associated with being outside as opposed to inside. What else might be, Max, I'm just going to ask you a sort of historical question or economic question. Don't worry, not too focused on economics, about which none of us probably know as much at all.
Okay.
But we have the Depression in the United States in the 1930s, arguably from 29 to 39, or 29 to 41, or possibly 32 to 1941. Anyway, this is a period in which houses are kind of a big deal. Why would that be?
Because of, it was a time kind of like recently of foreclosure, and the banks were failing, and
right. Eviction and foreclosure.
Repossession,
And one of the main issues for the Communist Party in the United States and for other leftists, those who want anti-establishment radicals, was to stem the flow of foreclosures and evictions. The unemployment rate in the United States in 1934 was 21.7%. And in 1932 it was 23.6%. By the time of this poem, it was still very high, not quite that high, but very high. So what does that, back to you, Max, what does that have to do with this at all? Houses, interior.
Well,
what's Taggart calling for?
If she's writing on behalf of the proletariat, then there's a sort of irony in which these people don't have their own interior space, or that she's writing about this sort of interiority, this interior space as being kind of a privilege, something that a lot of people don't have at this point.
Molly, I'll read the first two lines and you tell me what you think they mean. A middle-class fortress in which to hide. Draw down the curtain as if saying no. I'll read the next line. While noon's ablaze outside.
Well,
who's inside and who's outside?
Somebody from the middle class is inside, and the house sort of...
Why is it called a fortress?
Well, the house sort of protects them from the discord outside, it seems like, and it also keeps out the people who aren't privileged enough to have a home.
That's a great answer. I love the word discord. Can you do anything more with discord? And if not, I'm sure Anna can. What do you think? Why did you say discord?
Well, I think of protest. I think of, picketing in the streets and rioting and sort of people wanting to get in, and this person alone trying to keep them out.
Is it decorous and quiet, or is it...
Outside, no. Inside, yes.
Inside, yes. The reason I'm so interested in your use of the word discord is the phrase rising noise of the streets in the last line. Let me read the middle section, Anna, and ask you what you hear poetically in terms of sound, maybe meter, maybe rhetoric, any of those things. While noon's ablaze outside, and outside people work and sweat, and the day clings by, and the hard day ends. Whose hard day is that, by the way?
The workers.
Yeah, there are people outside sweating, and they're working. The 99% are outside, and the 1% is inside. I mean, in terms we would use today, the percentages were not the same. The middle class was certainly larger than 1%. This is middle class. And the day clings by and the hard day ends, and after you doze, brush out your hair. Who's you?
The middle class, again, who are inside their,
Right.
bathrooms closing or brushing their hair. And
Yeah, specifically people in this house. You doze, brush out your hair, and walk like a marmoset to and fro. That's not a positive. The marmoset is not a positive, right? You're an instinctive being. You just pace around and look in the mirror at middle age and sit and regard yourself, stare and hate your life and your tiresome friends and last night's bridge where you went in debt. What does that sound like?
I mean, that line, you hate your life and your tiresome friends, like, oh, poor you, you spent the evening playing bridge with your friends. If I'm
What happened during that bridge game?
you went in debt, you had money to go in debt with.
Yes, and debt is in quotes. Debt, just a little bit of debt. You owe $5 from last night's bridge game. But I didn't ask you about content. You answered content. I asked you how it sounded poetically. How does that work?
Well,
is it
starting
discordant?
I don't know about discordant. I mean, it's discordant a little bit in content, but
No, I'm not asking about content.
But in form, I think it works with these repetitions to kind of build these parallelisms.
Yeah, it builds. It's rhetorically building. Right?
And the and.
The and might lure us into thinking of it as Whitmanian or something like that. The piling of ands seem to loosen the rhetoric. But in fact, it's building up a kind of lyric momentum to make a case. It seems it's heading toward a certain didacticism. I ask again, Allie, Dave, does it sound discordant to you?
No, it's pretty evenly metered.
Evenly metered. Some of it is quite regular. Yeah, Dave?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a catalog that builds on itself. It's regular. It seems to mirror the organized nature of being inside this fortress.
Wow, what did you just say? Say that again.
It seems to mirror the
The
organized.
poem itself
The poem itself. What?
seems to mirror
Oh, the organized nature of what she's portraying inside this fortress,
which she hates.
which she hates, which she wants to contrast with the
Uh-oh.
proles outside ablaze.
Okay, uh-oh. So all this is happening while all around you, Anne-Marie's question for you, while all around you gathers the rage of cheated people, that's the 99% out there, will we hear your feet? So what's being asked here? This turn now. We turn from inside back to out. Tell us a little more about this. What's happening?
It seems that all the light of the noon ablaze and the sound of the rising noise of cheated people is outside, whereas inside the fortress, everything is monotonous, as Dave was saying, and sort of quiet, and people are gazing at their own reflections, as opposed to looking at the situation
So
around them.
interiority is affirmed in the self-gaze, not looking, and the curtains closed.
Exactly.
And where does the poem stand? Where does the speaker stand? Where does the subject position of the poem stand? On which side?
She's obviously trying to encourage people to exit this fortress, to go outside and join the crowd, but seems a little doubtful, perhaps.
So the content of the poem, the story of the poem, is arguing what? You just said it, but it's okay to repeat.
It's arguing for a revolution,
It's
for the
arguing
masses
that
to gather together.
join together
unite.
with us outside. You join with us outside. I don't think she uses us. Well, will we hear your feet? Yeah. Okay, now what is the form? And I don't mean just stanza form. Form includes tone, line length, meter, rhetorical choices. Where does the form of the poem stand? On which side is the form of the poem? Go ahead, Anna.
That's kind of where the poem falls flat for me, because the form of the poem is so much in the living room, so much in the interior, that, Molly used the word discord, talking about gathers the rage of cheated people, but there's still, even though the lines shorten up to maybe signal a break with the
It does
interior,
try to do that, yep.
but there's still internal rhyme, and
It's still formally of a piece with
it's still
what it
formally
was.
on the side
It
of
is attempting to be self-conscious enough to break the formal choices that led to the non-discordant representation of the interiority. And now it must, in those formal choices, break from that and doesn't. Will we hear your fret in the rising noise of the streets? Okay, so let's talk about rising noise of the streets.
Well, fret is a very sort of like uptight, worry, sort of pearl clutching, whereas rising noise.
Fret is an interior, it's a middle class word for anxiety.
Right.
Fear.
Right, where the rising noise of the streets, I mean, rising kind of gives that feeling of a wave where all these voices and chants are sort of coming together and getting louder and angrier probably.
And fret and rising noise don't seem to go together at all. You
Yeah.
know, like if you have the middle class people out there in the street with you, I mean, are they going to be fretting or are they, you know, it doesn't.
So fret is a word that's been dragged forward out from the middle class fortress, outward. Either hinting at the fact that Taggart is more comfortable in the thinking and rhetoric and vocabulary of the middle class fortress herself, or, you know, creating a kind of easy irony. The answer to the question is, oh no, which is very emphatic and angry. So I want to conclude this by asking you a couple of questions. One is, does the form of the poem take the side of the rising noise outside? Emily.
Well, no, right? I mean, it may not be a sonnet, but it's almost definitely more traditional than it is untraditional in terms of form.
And just being a little wider, thinking a little more widely than stanza choices, stanza form choices. Do you hear a lot of rising noise in it?
No.
I mean, oh no might be a bit of rising noise. Anybody else want to answer that question? Max, does the form of the poem take the side of the rising noise, which the content does? The content takes the side of the rising noise. The kind of poems that we've been admiring in this course would seek to reproduce the rising noise, the chaos and the discordance. I guess it's kind of at this point in this session a rhetorical question to ask you, but do you want to comment on that?
Well, I think while it doesn't, in some ways it's still on the side of that noise if it's not formally, even if it's not formally reproducing it, because I think there's a way in which it is sort of mocking those traditional forms and in so doing subverting them a little bit, to turn them back on, to make them sort of a vehicle for this invective against the bourgeois, and to turn it back against them and to say, well, this is, you know, this is your language, this belongs to you, but we can, or I can, here Genevieve Taggart can take this and use it to kind of get into your house and threaten you and try to get you out on the street.
Is the poem open as opposed to closed? Think back to a Dickinson poem where we could go in almost any direction by the end of it. Think about the revolution that wipes out the mills. It's a revolution of thinking about where you're supposed to put the means of production.
I think it's pretty closed. I mean,
Why closed?
well, I mean, to me, this is even another way in which she's traditional, is that the poem sort of traditionally takes a position and explains that position in,
Right.
you know.
It's didactic.
It is didactic.
It's
It does.
didactic.
It tells something pretty specific and uses the form and the content.
In a way,
So-
couldn't you say that also mirrors the people she's trying to speak to by making it so intentionally accessible?
Yes. And I think that the poem, if you go to the Proletarian Literature of the United States anthology, you'll find many adept writers like Taggart trying to make their poems accessible for the purpose of reaching the greatest number of people. So the question we want to conclude with is, it's a version of the question I just asked, is does the revolution that's hoped for in the content of the poem extend to other aspects of the poem? I think we've decided that it doesn't, but what might it extend to if it were a poem that participated in the discordance and the open-endedness that's really out there in the streets? what other kind of revolution could there be? It's a tough question, but we just finished chapter 2. What kinds of revolutionary aspects are there besides the story, the content? Dave, take a shot.
Is she trying to sort of imply an egalitarian approach that if it was all discordant, that would be anarchy, but socialism is a lot more egalitarian?
Well, no, I'm not quite sure what you just said, but I think I disagree. I think that the faux egalitarianism of this poem is really just that. That the poem is very closed and it knows what it wants and it knows what its position is. The poetic equivalence, formally speaking, aesthetically speaking, of egalitarianism is a kind of anything goes-ism that you find in modernist writing or in Dickinsonian writing, in which the poem is open-ended as to its meaning, in which the position is not clear, and you participate in the coming to that position. So the revolution that's hoped for in the poem's content must extend to a revolution in the means of representation. And in this poem, in my opinion, we're nowhere near a revolution in representation. This is a fairly traditional way of representing a position.